Hi, my name is Jace Bowman. This is a film analysis of WALL-E for Honors Colloquium Semester 2, and we will be analyzing what it means to be human. So, if you haven't seen WALL-E before, WALL-E takes place in a dystopian society where the humans have left Earth due to overconsumption and a buildup of trash, and a robot, WALL-E, is left to clean up, well, multiple robots, but we focus on the only one left, is left to clean up the mess. And then we'll progress from there. But I wanted to show this first little clip. All right, so that first one really shows us how much trash there is still on Earth and how we're starting to see a little bit of personality from WALL-E. He has a pet cockroach that we get to meet in this scene, and it shows him saving a tire cap in order to, he's just saving because he's interested in it. And so that shows a little bit more personality than your typical robot. Moving from that, we have a robot that WALL-E meets named Eva. He clearly has a little bit of a crush on her, but we'll see how that develops. This is their first real interaction, beyond her shooting him, or trying to shoot him.
WALL-E. WALL-E. Eve. Eve. Eve.
All right, so this is really their first interaction. You can tell they're both starting to kind of develop a personality at this point. Before this point, Eve had been kind of shown a little bit of personality, but very focused on her objective to find a plant on Earth. And so you can obviously tell WALL-E is interested romantically in Eve. And so we get to see how that progresses along the movie. And this is kind of contrasted with the humans. So I'll show a quick clip of the humans, and then we'll do a little bit more of analysis of how to comprehend this juxtaposition of the robots being very emotional in ways, and then we see how that's contrasted with the humans in this film.
I did hear you. By and large, everything you need to be happy. Your day is very important to us.
Hey, drink much. Here, take a cup. Hey, take a cup.
Please remain stationary. A service bot will be here to assist you momentarily.
Starts.
All right, so as you see in the beginning of that clip, he is completely infatuated with the little screen telecast in front of him, and isn't even really aware of the world around him, especially WALL-E, who doesn't know what he's doing in this spaceship in outer space. Sorry, I forgot to mention that they're in outer space. WALL-E followed Eve to outer space because he's in love with her. And so we see how he is incapable of walking. It seems like they're very sedentary in their chairs and don't really have to do any physical activity or have very engaging lives beyond their screen. And so this brings some questions to the forefront of the conversation. So the first being, so what boundary is set of what does it mean to be human? Like, what is humanity? And I think that this gives a very interesting perspective because you feel more connected with the robots in this film. To give a little on my framework of how I view humanity through the lens of a species, but then later through reflection on language, you can kind of see how we see people as less than human due to their inability to show compassion or various different aspects. But I feel like the primary way that I see people seen as less than human in different ways in the modern day is someone who doesn't show emotion. So like you'd say, oh, like where's your humanity if you do something that is really horrible without showing any remorse for that? That's just one example. Either way, we see a lot of characteristics that show emotion that are in the characters that aren't necessarily in the robot characters that aren't necessarily present in the humans. Another really key one is the aspect of love. We see this love that Wally has for Eve and kind of a, oh, you're kind of cute, like little robots from Eve's perspective. And so pairing those two together, we see the robots showing a lot more emotional expression beyond like what is next, what is needed. When in this, especially this little clip, we see that he's really only interested in his screen and getting his food taken care of, which is more of a necessity and not necessarily something that would be something that is extraneous to help you enjoy life, which is something that we see the robots pursuing. So this boundary is kind of challenged in this movie because you connect with the robots better. With this challenge of the robots being considered almost more human than the humans, we're kind of faced with this tension of we know that we're supposed to value human life, and many people believe that human life has inherent value, but we see that contrasted of us caring more about the robots in this film. I would say that most people who have seen WALL-E would agree that they care more about WALL-E and Eva's relationship and whether WALL-E is going to be okay overall throughout the movie than compared to the humans whenever we're human. So obviously you'd think it'd be more natural for us to care for them. So really that's diving back to our care for other people might be more rooted in seeing attributes of personality or capacity for love or capacity for emotion. So brings up questions like, why do we care so much for the robots, even though we know that the humans should be the ones that we're caring about? And do humans have inherent worth, or is that based in their personality, their ability to show emotion, or their intellect? I think is a big one that we see that robots definitely have a lot of intellect, but typically in the real world, they're lacking that level of emotional capacity. And so going a little bit further into what robots are human creation. They're really only functional because of human creativity. And as that expands, we see robots, or we see creators wanting to give robots more and more human characteristics. And so I find that very interesting and something that could have a little bit more development and idea. But beyond that, I think that with the thing that this movie is pointing out is that there's almost an insecurity that a lot of humans have, that they don't see themselves as human as they could be, which I find very interesting. And then we wonder if that robots can have the same significance that humans have in the real world. So in the real world, we don't have robots that yet have the capacity to feel emotion. This kind of goes into another question: what is artificial intelligence? So artificial intelligence is a computer program that has the capacity to learn and make decisions, but ultimately it doesn't have any capacity to show emotion or feel emotion. It also doesn't have a capacity for creativity. And those are several aspects that we really consider to be a qualifier of being human, or having personhood, or along those lines. And so in this current day, we don't have robots that have these abilities, but as you can see in WALL-E, that's part of what makes this movie so appealing, is that we see personhood, we see humanity in these robots. Otherwise, we wouldn't really care we just see them as mechanical machines. I think that a big factor of us wanting to see robots and artificial intelligence as on a similar level as humans is our desire to project our own experiences, our own emotions onto these robots. We see this in many other facets of life, but ultimately we see a robot and we think, oh, it must have the same experiences that I do, when they may not even have the capacity, or in the current day, they don't have the capacity for that. And so it is more likely that we're going to see humans using robots to mimic humans, but not necessarily having those personal desires or capacity for emotions or imagination. However, the movie WALL-E does a very good job of portraying this. And so I think that defining that line between what is human and what isn't human is very important in this film. And I think that you have to kind of go back to a deeper question that might even have a root in first semester colloquium with reality, and saying, if there is a set reality that we can base truth off of, true and false, good and evil, bad and good, just in general, can we qualify what makes a good human or a bad human? And so I'd say that we're all approaching this with a framework of, it's better to be a human like we currently live on Earth, where you're active, you're doing extracurricular things that enrich your life, rather than being sedentary and not interacting with the world. But that requires a framework in which we can decide what is good and what is bad, what is a fruitful way to be a human and what is not. And so one could argue that we're projecting this standard of humanity onto this movie, but I think that there is a clip from the movie that displays kind of an agreement that there is a better way to be living, rather than just living for the next blended burger. So.
Oh, so many stars. Hey, that's what's his name?
Hey, what the?
Look at that.
Hey, I know that guy. It's Wally. That's it. Hey, Wally. Hey, somebody died. Hey.
All right. And so this kind of shows how they're finding so much enrichment, so much significance in a world beyond a foot in front of their face, and seeing the stars and seeing another person and actually having a physical interaction with them. It's something much more deeper than you can get just by constantly being on a screen. So I think that this helps support a claim that there is a more fruitful way to live as a human, and something that makes you almost more human and your life more valuable in a way. I think that it's still difficult to contrast that with maybe someone who doesn't have control over their ability to show or feel emotion, or doesn't have a capacity to control their intellect, like someone born with a mental disability. And I think it's difficult to define humanity in these terms when you consider these cases. However, I think with the framework that you can have aspects within your personal capacity that enrich your life to make you a more productive and have a more fulfilling life as a human, I think that's a really valuable thing to be considering when analyzing this movie. And so it's beyond just intellect or will, but within each person's capacity for intellect and emotion. So yeah, those were my main takeaways from the film. And kind of tying that back to both last semester and this semester, I really love WALL-E. I hadn't seen it since I was a young kid, and it's a very emotional film. I was not expecting to feel so strongly for these robots, but it's very good, very well done. Animation is amazing, especially when they're on Earth. You see so many little details in WALL-E's kind of rough around the edges. You kind of see all those little quirky characteristics that he has. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed. I would suggest, if you haven't seen WALL-E already, go ahead and watch it and kind of keep some of those ideas in your mind of what it means to be human and if these robots are more human than the humans.